Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Journey to Purpose. Today, I have with me the wonderful Anna Taranova. She is an independent researcher. Anna, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here with you.
Thank you. First, very easy question is, where in the world are you?
Right now, I'm located in Spain, in a city called Marbella. It's a small city, touristic city next to the sea. I was born in Ukraine, though.
Oh, wonderful. And did you leave because of the war, or have you been left before then?
No, I left Ukraine when I was around 14. I used to live in London, so I left the country like long time ago already.
Well, let's hope that what's going on there stops very soon. But thank you for being here. Marbella is a very nice part of Spain. I've not been there yet, but everyone tells me it's wonderful. So I hope you've got good weather right now because we haven't.
It is good. It's always sunny here.
Oh man, I'm so jealous. So, independent researcher, what are you an independent researcher of?
I've started my research based on psychology because I was interested in psychology since I was a kid. And I've studied a lot. And then I not only went through psychology, I also wanted to understand how psychology works in terms of biology.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of biology, I digged into biology, neurobiology, and then I were kind of trying to describe experience which I had since a childhood, which is a little bit like changed mental state, which is like sixth sense, I call it. And I couldn't find the perfect information which would describe it scientifically. And then, since I was trying to translate my feeling into psychology, then biology, and I've studied tons. And then one day it came up the way I have it now, and I've been able to explain it better. And now it became a formula which could be tested, and it was already tested. So I'll tell you more.
Yeah. So before we get into what this is, tell me, why was having a scientific answer important to you? So in this day and age, obviously opinions become facts very quickly, but you went down the route of, I want empirical evidence. So why was that important to you?
I think I wanted to be understood by people. And then if I describe it with interpretation, it's very subjective.
Mm-hmm.
And then I felt it like I literally can feel it on my skin that it's not subjective. And I was, I guess, trying to find a way. Plus, I was very curious kid. So I was researching, discovering the world. And I think all of this came up to what I have now.
Brilliant. And I do think that curiosity in children is also important in adults, and that it's good that you'd be able to maintain that approach to asking questions and learning more.
I really think that it's one of the biggest things which influences who I am right now. And to be honest, I can't tell if you can make it stronger in terms of when you're an adult, because from my own experience, I had it since I was a little kid. I used to read a lot, like crazy a lot, and that just kept with me through all of my life. I've also been this kind of kid who never got shy to ask stupid questions. If I don't understand something, I keep asking. I just have this strong desire of understanding the universe and where we are, who we are.
Are you familiar with the Greek philosopher Socrates?
Yes, of course.
So obviously his big thing, for those who don't know, was about questioning. And the first assumption that you need to make if you are curious and a questioner of the world is that you know nothing, or that you can always learn more. And you see this is why people, I think, get limited in their personal growth, is they decide that they already know everything, which is a very crazy statement because there's so much to learn and so much to know. How can you know everything? But it does, keeping that curiosity going, I think, is how we grow as people.
I have a very nice story about this. When I was studying, I've studied art because I was choosing between psychology and art. So I've began with art, and through my work, I already explored science, but I was studying with a classmate, and I was really close with that girl. Her name is Kate. And she told me once, she was raised with her granddad, and she told me that her granddad used to tell her, imagine, okay, you see the tree, it's green, and you're right. But what if it's blue? And then they start to explore this topic. And it stayed with me so much because it was just, I got goosebumps right now, to be honest, because it reflects me so much. I have really strong critical thinking, but at the same time, I also ask what if, and I can let myself do this. And I have, I think, very low fear in terms of something new.
Yeah, I that's so important, and it's a really good lesson. And you said this earlier on about you're not afraid of asking questions, of getting things wrong. I think that's another really important lesson that we can all have, is that it's okay to be wrong on that path to discovery, on that journey to learn, because you've got to start from somewhere. The reason we learn, the reason we ask questions is because we don't have all the answers. So of course, some of the answers we do have might be wrong, and or even challenging the norm. And you see it in more of a political term now, with challenging governments and doing like the so what around it. But what I love about your approach is it's not just about, as I say, it's not just about opinion. It's about opinion, but with facts, back it up. So when you're challenging something, going away and going, okay, so why is that? How do we know that to be true? And that in itself is not something that everyone today does. You know, we're in this society of instant gratification, wanting information now. But your journey has taken you time and effort and dedication to go and put the facts into the feelings that you have. And that's quite remarkable still.
Thank you. I also would love to share to people that I don't think that it's only applicable for science, to be honest. I think it's even for our relationships, when we like have this strong belief of our being right in everything, and then when you assume and could see the point of views of other people, it helps a lot, really does help a lot in communicating and making something happen without words.
Yeah, and
Basically.
so I'm not a big art person. I was never very good at it in school, but I go to art galleries from time to time. I went recently to Madrid with my mum, and I learnt about the artist Kandinsky. Now, for some people who are into art, they know who he is. For me, it was a new thing, and every time I go, I learn something more. And it doesn't matter in what field I go, where I go, I will, even if I think I know something, I'll learn something more. I went to Northern Ireland recently and I studied history as my first degree. I studied Irish history because being British and our Irish relationship is not covered in glory. There's both sides could do better, but I still learned something new, even though I'd studied it in the past. And I think, the more we ask questions, again, the better people we become, because we are challenging our assumptions, we're challenging what we know. But it's the so what around what that means to me as an individual. So every time I learn something new, I feel like my brain is itched in a really good way. And I don't
I
get that
really,
going.
sorry, I really love the part you've mentioned about the mistakes, because I really do think that mistakes actually shows that you're evolve in
Evolving.
the
Yeah.
process. And when there is no mistakes, there is a thing like you need to really see if it's going well. So mistakes are really good. Just
I,
to see what you need to adjust to understand the process better. And
right.
then if you really like, as again, I'm talking obviously from my own experience, if you really like what you are doing, you don't take mistakes as something what judges you, like as your ego. You just take it as an interest in exploring journey. So yeah, I think this way of viewing the mistakes makes it much more easier to
Keep
being
growing.
able to go through this way. And
Definitely.
scientific way is very interesting.
Absolutely. So let's come to, so what is it that you were trying to explore? So you talked about this sixth sense. So let's talk about that some more. What is it that you were trying to prove?
I would experience like the sixth sense of a bit like different changed state of consciousness,
Okay.
which you would feel like what's gonna happen soon, or it's not very mystical, I would say, but you strongly can feel it. And then I've noticed I was exploring spiritual knowledges as well, not only the science. I was studying how the brain works. I was studying like lots of other people experiences who went through near-death experience, who tried psychedelics, but not in terms of having fun, in terms of studying themselves. And after all of that, I've noticed there is one thing which connects this all experience. And I've been able, one day I've been able, when I was experienced this strong feeling, to describe it in metaphors. And at this point, I didn't understand that it was the process of synchronicity. I just were really, I would say, good with the words. So I've been able to put it in words, and then which I transformed to the formula. And then working through it, I've understood that it's actually that process of synchronicity happening in our psyche. And I obviously, since I've studied a lot in psychology, I obviously read Carl Jung studied synchronicity process of psyche. And he even tried to put it in the official, let's say, language with Pauli. Pauli is the student of Einstein, and Pauli got Nobel Prizes for his work. He's a very well-known scientist. And him and Carl Jung they both noticed that there is one mechanism which works same outside of our psyche in the nature, and also it works in our by experiencing our reality, and it also works in the psyche. They were writing letters to each other, trying to understand this process, trying to bring it to measurable thing. And they haven't been able to do this, but they already kind of did the map for me, which I didn't really understand at the beginning. But then when I digged into the process, which I've been able to describe, I truly understood, wow, that's so interesting. That's exactly what was Jung saying. And I first went, for some reason, I had like this instinct to see, wow, okay, this is the thing, how I experience it. It's a multiple flows. I'll try to explain it very easy. I love to give an example. Imagine you're crossing next to the restaurant and you hear a music which reminds you of your first love. And then you also smell, like, let's say, his perfume. And then your brain doesn't work this fast before you really bring it to consciousness, but you already have the entire feeling. And then this shows how two flows overlap in our body in terms of the ears, sense, the way you hear, and then the smell. And then it overlap inside us even before the consciousness understands it, let's say. So you get this intense feeling, which I call the intuitive feeling or the sixth sense, which can describe the process of intuition. But it's literally happening in our body, in my body, in human being bodies. And I've described it. And then I texted my colleague. He's PhD in rockets. He's building the rockets. He's physician, and he also works a lot with programming. And I said, let's see with the real data. Let's find a reliable resource. We can do this easily. And let's check if this gonna show us on the graphics. I call it, if we can catch the lightning inside of our body when two of those processes, two of those flows cross between each other, and if we see if they're connected to emotions. So we took data from people who were experiencing, like, watching emotional videos. And there were a heart rate of them and electrodermal activity, which shows emotions through the skin. So we put it through the formula, and in the end, by Python is the programming coding, the most simple one. And we could see exactly on the graphics, which no one had been able to do before, how our emotions correlate with this cross synchronicity inside our psyche.
So let me play that back because there's a lot of information in there.
Yeah.
So essentially, we're talking about when, the example you gave at restaurant, you get the music which triggers the auditory response of a memory, your first love or a situation. You also get the olfactory response, the smelling response of food, of a memory that they combine together. But your initial response isn't a conscious one. It's a subconscious one, essentially. And then what you've done is taken this data, so looked at the electrical thermal temperature of your skin, along with, what was the other bit of data you looked at? Was it the heart rate as well?
Heart rate, yeah.
Heart rate. Combine those, and so you've seen the trigger where when you have these sensory experiences that you had a physiological response in your body, and that's why you're having these sensory moments, essentially. If I played that back correctly.
I give an easy example of reaction. You get the goosebumps without understanding it inside your brain. So you already do feel this intuitive state of mind. You already have goosebumps without even realizing it in the brain. but then it comes.
So how much of this do you think is linked to sort of our amygdala and the fight or flight? So we talk about that subconscious level. So are these this is part of the limbic system, the emotional system responding, not consciously? Is there a link to the fight or flight as well, or does this sit outside of that kind of behavior response?
This is a very actually interesting question, which I have very opened this topic in my research. I think what I've noticed, which I think a lot of other psychologists didn't notice before, that when you get into this scared flight or fight moment, fight or how do you, fight or freeze. Sorry, I speak four languages, so sometimes I get confused. You get freeze, and then you have this observer inside you, observer of what's happening, very conscious. And this is when your consciousness can literally fix what's happening with your psyche, but observing it.
Mm-hmm.
So it is connected in a deep sense, but I would like to today share more how is it not only works in psyche, and this is the most interesting part, which is it is first of all connected to psychology because our mind is very fragmented since we get little traumas, all of us, in our childhood. And then I give an easy example. You go and share with your mom, oh, I love this boy. And then she giggles, and not in a bad way, but kid takes it as something bad, sensitive. And then your psyche gets fragmented. You kind of think, oh, it's bad to love someone. And because we divide things in many ways, science about synchronicity is very fragmented on nowadays. We have this mechanism working in physics. It's described in physics. Carl Jung noticed this mechanism in psyche. Math scientists work with it in math. Then in biology, this mechanism is explained, but no one looked at it wow, actually this mechanism works everywhere in each field, and maybe it's somehow connected. And me being experiencing it and then going with the fact checks with reality, how does my psyche experience, because I work with a therapist 3 times a week, plus I do a lot of self observing and diaries. So my therapist helps me to not project on my work my own traumas and etc. And then I'm being able to compare how this works in psyche, and I first went to physics. And this is very, very interesting point. We have a very easy example of synchronicity. We have these toys, anti-stress toys on the tables with metal balls, and we can observe this process. Basically, you pull 2 balls, and by the time it just happens like gravity, 2 balls start to move in the same exactly, there is 2 ways of synchronicities in phase, which means they go exactly in the same direction. And then anti-phase, it means they go exactly the same, but they're reflecting each other. So, and I was amazed how the process which I've been able to describe were exactly describing both the way the pendulums work and the psyche. So I've started to explore this topic more, and I've been able to do the prediction based on inner logic of the formula about the astrological events, such as magnetic storm. And how does it happen? The process is basically the same there in psyche, in physics, and then it is applied to astrophysics because it's basically 2 flows overlap in one point of time and space. And I see what happens with geomagnetic storms. There is some events happening, astrophysical events, just to break it very easy, happening in the same time. And then we see where they overlap each other. And at the moment, let's call them, I love metaphors, I call them people. They just meet with each other, 5 people, then event occurs and it gives a response. So I've been able to predict the geomagnetic storm. They are measured in G1, beginning from G1 up to G5. It's the strength of it. And G3 means already kind of like a big one, which is happening like a couple of times a year. And it's basically really hard to predict it. And nowadays, science doesn't do this yet. And I've been able to predict the window over 3 days. And I was waiting and I was checking all of the news. They do give predictions, but they usually give the predictions like few days before, and not all of them work. And I did this in like before a month of this happening, and it happened. So I've been able to predict the period of time of 3 days in a year and the strength of the magnetic storm.
Wow.
So that shows reproductivity not only in the biometrics of our physical body, but it shows that this process does work in the astrophysics. And
So-
it's not only assumption for now.
So essentially, you've taken the biopsycho theory and applied it to the metaphysical. Is it, I mean, it comes back to the whole idea that everything is energy, doesn't it? And fundamentally, if everything's energy, these patterns can be repeated in any environment where you have the two streams of synchronicity overlapping. Do you have an end point that you're going to with this research? Like, is there something that you hope you can help people with, whether it's, whether it is predicting geostorms or something on a personal level? Have you just going to follow the journey where it takes you?
My main goal is that I mostly do multidisciplinary research, but I'm more concentrated on psychology. Because primary, I'm a psychologist. So I'm more aware how this process works on the psyche, and I know where does it leads to. And it leads to anti-fragmental thinking when your psyche becomes to the wholeness, which means you experience a harmony inside you. And that process Carl Jung noticed as well, but he only could be able to describe it in the words, which I suggest nowadays that we using the AI and nowadays technology can measure our body signals, and we have tons of them, and see how they overlap, so we connect psychology not only by interpretations, because it's so hard now. We psychologists work now like based on our feelings as well, based on how we observe the client, on his words, on the feelings, but we don't have the measures. We can't measure the temperature. And what I suggest to connect it, and it helps much faster to go through all of the process of psychoanalysis, because to heal the journey, the real journey of psychoanalysis takes years, and it's very presumed. It's hard because you do it on the subjective experience, the way you feel it. And then when you have these measures, it's easier and faster, and it could be very personalized as well. Since I'm right now in the process of designing an app which will take your personal measures, you will have a look at, for example, the videos, and you don't need to do anything. Just already our iPhones are able to take the strength of the way you pressure it. Then if it's 30 centimeters close to your face, the way you breathe, and it's so many things. And plus, if you add any additional measurement device, such as a Oura ring or whatever, you can see how this process is connected to your psyche, and that could help a lot in mental health.
For those who haven't studied as much as you, what can you just talk about what you mean by you say the fragmented psyche? So what does that mean for people who don't understand it?
As I gave an example of the kid who shared with his mom about loving a girl. We are as a kids very fragile, and especially there is some people who are extra sensitive from the birth, which is already known with the science. And we sometimes interpretate the things which they aren't even in real, like mom might not mean to be mean to the child, but child would understand it's bad to love. I break it in something very easy. And then your psyche lives its own life, and your unconsciousness dictates you a lot of your experience in life. And it's not an assumption, again, it's a science. And then you have this unhealed traumas, which this part of your psyche, it doesn't disappear, like this ability of loving someone, but it goes into the shadow, it goes into unconsciousness, and your psyche tries to protect you so much not to feel this pain, because kid had experienced that pain very sensitive way. And then your psyche tries to protect you, but it doesn't help you really. So it keeps this ability to love in the shadow. And then when you bring it out, first of all, you don't have this much pressure happening inside you because you don't have inner conflict anymore with your consciousness and unconsciousness. So these shadows are brought to the consciousness and you can experience things as they are, which are beautiful. And that's what I mean to bring the psyche to the wholeness. So you bring these pieces of the shadows to the light, and then it helps you to stop this conflict, which influences our world like crazy, influences our daily life, influences our relationships at work and our personal life. As like the way you feel, you wake up with an anxiety after sleep. This is your unconsciousness talking to you. This is your shadow, fragmented psyche parts went into the shadow. They want to tell you something, but the psyche is very complicated. So I'm seeing myself as someone who can help to transform it for people.
And thank you for that. And I mean, the Jungian work on shadow is fascinating on the shadow self. So anyone who hasn't read it and is interested, it's just Carl Jung. Go and find out any book by him. It will talk about it. But what about if you? So obviously, a lot of our trauma comes from childhood, as you said. So we have these macro traumas, fragmented psyche. What about adults who perhaps don't consider themselves to have trauma from childhood, but maybe, they might have served in the military, they might have been in a war zone, and trauma has developed from there. Can this help them as well?
Yes, of course. It can help. It doesn't mean it's only connected to the childhood, because it's a very easy example with the childhood, because all of the psychology, basically most of the psychology, is based on our childhood, but we also do receive the trauma in our adult age. And the process of psyche works exactly the same. Sometimes something happens and we just forget. This is a very good example of fragmented psyche. You experience something this bad and this disturbing to yourself that your mind just forgets it. Although our nowadays studies shows that this memory doesn't go anywhere. So this memory, it keeps in unconsciousness and it dictates the way you are acting today. And it's not helpful if you don't bring it to the consciousness, which doesn't mean you need to go back and experience this bad feeling. You don't need to put yourself in all of this pain, but you need to be aware kind of it. And then you, again, will be able to bring yourself to the wholeness. And this is when you are experiencing harmony. And this is when I also mentioned studying near-death experience, psychedelics, and etc. And it's very interesting how people from different cultures experiencing near-death experience and psychedelics, they experience this intense feeling of that everything is really connected and everything is like one, and that's basically your psyche going to very healthy way, experiencing itself as a wholeness.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing.
What is next for you with this research then? Have you got an end in sight, or is it going to be as long as the journey takes you?
I'm now still on a journey of trying to describe it as much simple as I am, because I think this is the most difficult part for me, and challenging in a good way, since I work on it like on my daily basics, and I go dig very deeply. And now I've finished my research and I'm looking for the found, because I want to build laboratory for it. I need to be able to explain myself better to people, because we are all different. We are all very important, because I'm doing this. I need other people help to do me other stuff. And I think this is what is very beautiful about humanity. And I want right now, I'm in the process of writing a book where I will transform my research into more simple language, where I'll be able to explain it like on a daily basis in a beautiful way. I'll try my best. And even talking to you, it gives me experience of trying to explain it more and more clear for people who are not working in the same area, because I want to show this process. It does happen to all of us, and I want to bring it to understanding of people, and they don't need to go into all of this data and terminology. And this is why I exist. So this is my first thing. And then I obviously want to develop an AI app, which helps with mental health. And I'm this kind of person which has, I guess, plans for like 3 more lives in terms, even with this research. It's big. It's going big, and I even didn't expect it before. Just in the process, I understood how big it is. And at one moment, it even scared me. Plus, it requires a lot of working, intellectual working, which I'm a normal human being. Sometimes I get tired, but I help myself a lot with my friends. I chat a lot. I play chess, so I try to balance it. But then
Amazing.
in the end of the day, I think my aim is to bring this process to awareness and then show the useful ways which could be applied and used on predictions for the astrophysical events, plus for medicine, because our body works in synchronicity, for mental health. Yeah, I feel like I need to bring this process to awareness.
Sounds amazing. If anyone wants to reach out to you, find more, support your work, how can they find you?
They can find me in LinkedIn by name, Anna Taranova, and there I have connected my work. I do post a lot because the work of scientists is always like developing. So you post updates on the research. So I do post on Zenoda, it's called. It's the platform for scientists. And then if you follow me there, you could be able to see the process of work. And then there is obviously on LinkedIn, the way you can connect to me directly through the
Amazing.
emails. And
Perfect. Anna, it's been really interesting. Thank you ever so much for your time. I really hope this research continues to go well, and I'm looking forward to following the journey as it progresses. Thank you.
it was really nice to meet you. Thank you very much.